Hey everybody, this is Dr. Y. Let me turn this around so I can actually see my face. I have to tell you, full confession mode here. This is my very first YouTube video ever in a series. So that's kind of exciting. And also, I'm a one-woman show. So what that means is I'm filming myself in my basement in my spare time. So because of that, it's probably not going to be the most perfect filming that you've ever seen. Probably not the most perfect audio, probably not the most perfect lighting, but what are you gonna do? You just keep moving forward. Oh, and by the way, it's so cold in my basement. I live in Utah that I generally am going to be filming with a blanket because it's teeth chattering cold outside. And that's one of the beauties of living in Utah. So I couldn't think of a better question to start off with Ask Dr. Y than how do I find a good therapist? I'm actually asked this question a lot, and it's hard. It's hard to find a good therapist, just like it's hard to find a good medical doctor, primary care physician. There seems to be an art to it, but I also feel like you got to know where to go in order to find the information that you need to make the best decision. So I came up with 3 tips on how to help you find the best therapist in your area. Number 1, you've got to interview that therapist in person. I think it's really important in terms of gauging how a match would go between you and that person, their style, just your rapport with that person. I think you can judge a lot off of sitting down with them for 15 minutes is all. And so when you're shopping for a new therapist, ask them if they do a free consult, at least 15 minutes, at the very least over Zoom, so that you can figure out if this is somebody that you can talk to. I think there's a lot to be said about the vibes that we give off when we sit with people directly. And I can't imagine going to a therapist that I didn't feel like I could talk to. So number 1, make sure that you have an opportunity to interview that therapist. And if that therapist doesn't do free consultations, I would move on to somebody else. So number 2, and this one can be kind of controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I want you to have the best experience possible with the best quality medical care that you can get. You really need to be going to someone who graduated from an accredited school. That's important because that way we know that their training and their supervision was top-notch and they have learned the appropriate modalities in order to administer therapy. Number 2, you really need to understand if this person has a license in good standing. So what that means is they haven't ever had issues where their license has been suspended or taken away completely. You really don't want to go to somebody who doesn't have a license in good standing. So that's all great and wonderful, but how do I find out if there's a license for this individual that I'm looking at? So every state has a website for the Department of Professional Licenses. And every state may call it something a little bit different, but if you'll Google Department of Professional Licensing, there should be a state component of that website that pulls up. Click on that, type in social worker or type in psychologist, type in licensed marriage and family therapist or licensed professional counselor. You can type in any of those credentials and then the name should come up and it should prompt you to be able to do a search. Then type in the name of the therapist that you're doing your research on and make sure that they haven't had any suspensions or problems with their license throughout the years. So number 3 is, and it can be really controversial. So I don't know why I'm looking side to side. I'm in the basement by myself. But listen, you as a therapist need to have your own therapist. In my view, it's impossible to hold safe space for other people unless I'm doing my own self-work. And sometimes that's in the form of a one-on-one therapist for myself or a supervisor or maybe even a peer group support system, where I'm going to a group of other therapists in a professional setting and I'm able to talk through cases as well as any questions that I may have regarding that client within confidentiality. So asking a therapist in an interview, do you see a therapist? I think is a really good key factor in terms of how healthy that therapist is. And frankly, do they practice what they preach? If that person says yes, and they have no hesitation, I think you're in good company. If that person has an interesting reaction and doesn't want to answer the question or says no, it would be my suggestion that you keep on looking. So I hope that these 3 tips will help you in researching and finding a good match in your next therapist. It is really important that you do your homework so that you're getting the very best mental health care possible. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.